What if your body wasn't aging one birthday at a time, but one habit at a time? Most people blame aging on genetics. Some blame bad luck. Others simply accept that every birthday means another wrinkle, another ache, and another year their body slowly begins falling apart. But biology tells a much stranger story. Scientists have discovered that aging doesn't happen all at once. It happens one biological system at a time. Your skin ages differently from your muscles. Your metabolism ages differently from your brain. And surprisingly, many of those changes aren't driven by the passing of time alone. They're influenced by the small things you repeat every single day. The frightening part? Most of them don't feel dangerous at all. They feel normal. Tonight, while you're sleeping. Tomorrow morning, while you're eating breakfast. This afternoon, while you're sitting at your desk. Your body is quietly collecting information and asking one simple question. Should I keep repairing, or should I start adapting to decline? And over years, the answer slowly becomes visible. Not overnight, not after one bad day, but after thousands of ordinary ones. Today we're following 6 everyday habits that quietly convince your body to age faster. And the last one doesn't just affect your skin. It reaches almost every system inside your body. Of course, these aren't the only habits that influence how we age. Scientists have identified dozens of biological processes that contribute to biological aging. These are simply 6 everyday examples that quietly affect systems most people rarely think about. Let's begin somewhere almost nobody expects. Your pillow. After all, sleeping is supposed to help you recover. So, how could it possibly make you look older? The answer has nothing to do with beauty. It has everything to do with physics. Every night, your face spends 6 to 8 hours pressed against the same surface. At 20 years old, your skin springs back almost instantly because collagen and elastin are still remarkably resilient. But those proteins aren't indestructible. Over thousands of nights, repeated mechanical compression begins creating tiny stress patterns that eventually become permanent sleep lines. Dermatologists call them compression wrinkles. And unlike expression lines, they don't form because your muscles move. They form because your skin spends years being folded in exactly the same places. It's one of those rare examples where time itself isn't the main problem. Repetition is. That's why people who consistently sleep on one side often develop deeper lines on that same side of the face, while sleeping on the back reduces that repeated mechanical stress. Your pillow isn't aging you overnight. It's simply remembering every night you've ever spent on it. But here's what makes this even more interesting. Your skin isn't actually the fastest aging tissue in your body. Collagen can repair itself. The next habit quietly changes the proteins your body depends on to stay young in the first place. Sugar. For years, scientists have known that excess sugar doesn't just change blood glucose. It changes your body's structural proteins through a process called glycation. Sugar molecules attach themselves to collagen and elastin, forming compounds known as advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. Those proteins gradually become stiffer, less flexible, and more brittle. Skin loses elasticity, recovery slows. The smooth, springy framework that once supported your face slowly begins behaving more like old fabric than fresh rubber. Some observational studies have also linked diets high in added sugar with shorter telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of our chromosomes that naturally shorten as cells divide. Telomeres don't determine aging by themselves, but they are one of the biological markers scientists use to study it. While the relationship is complex, one message keeps appearing across the research. Your cells remember the metabolic environment you repeatedly expose them to. The remarkable thing is that sugar isn't trying to age you. Your body is simply reacting to chemistry. But even collagen isn't the system aging the fastest. Your muscles may already be changing before you notice anything in the mirror. Most people think sitting is harmless because it doesn't feel like doing anything. Biology disagrees. The moment your muscles stop contracting for long periods, thousands of tiny biochemical signals begin changing throughout the body. Muscle tissue is far more than something that helps you move. It constantly communicates with your metabolism, helping regulate blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, and even inflammation. When muscles remain inactive for hours at a time, many of those protective signals begin fading. This isn't simply the opposite of exercise. It's a completely different biological state. Researchers have found that prolonged sitting is associated with reduced metabolic flexibility, poorer glucose regulation, and a higher risk of several chronic diseases, faster cellular aging even in people who still manage to exercise regularly. A 1-hour workout cannot fully erase 10 hours of uninterrupted inactivity because your body doesn't experience movement as a daily total. It experiences it as a continuous conversation. The longer that conversation goes silent, the more your biology begins adapting to a life that requires less strength, less energy, and eventually less muscle. And here's the strange part. Everything we've explored so far has affected a different part of your body. Your skin, your collagen, your muscles. But none of them has reached the system that quietly influences almost everything else. Your brain. Of course, these aren't the only habits that influence how we age. These are simply 6 everyday examples that quietly influence systems most people never even think about. The next one begins with something you've been doing since the moment you were born: breathing. Most people never think about how they breathe. They only notice it when something feels wrong. But your nose does far more than move air. It warms it, filters it, humidifies it, and even produces nitric oxide, a tiny signaling molecule that helps improve oxygen delivery throughout the lungs. When breathing shifts from the nose to the mouth for long periods, especially during sleep, that entire system becomes less efficient. The mouth dries out. Oral bacteria multiply more easily. Sleep quality often declines, and the body is more likely to drift toward fragmented, less restorative sleep. Mouth breathing itself isn't a cause of aging, but over many years it can quietly remove one of your body's simplest recovery advantages. And recovery is where aging is either slowed or accelerated, because while you're asleep, your body performs some of the most extraordinary repair work it will ever do. Most people think sleep is passive. In reality, it's one of the busiest biological periods of your entire day. Within the first hours of deep sleep, growth hormone rises dramatically, stimulating tissue repair, muscle recovery, and collagen production. At the same time, your brain activates the glymphatic system, a remarkable network that helps wash away metabolic waste which is accumulated throughout the day, including proteins that have been linked to neurodegenerative disease when they build up over time. Your immune system recalibrates, hormones rebalance, memories are reorganized, damaged proteins are broken down and replaced. For a few precious hours every night, your body becomes its own repair laboratory. Now imagine shortening that process night after night, year after year. Eventually, the repairs become smaller than the damage. That's when aging begins gaining ground. But even poor sleep isn't the strongest aging signal your body can receive, because every habit we've explored so far has affected one system at a time. The next one quietly reaches almost all of them. Stress. Not the occasional stressful day, not an important presentation, not an exam. Chronic stress, the kind your body never gets permission to switch off. When stress becomes your normal state, cortisol remains elevated for longer than it was ever designed to. In the short term, that's an extraordinary survival mechanism. It keeps you alert, focused, and ready to respond. But over months and years, constantly preparing for danger comes at a cost. Inflammation becomes more difficult to control. Sleep becomes less restorative. Muscle is broken down more easily. Fat accumulates more readily around the abdomen. Skin repairs itself more slowly. Even the immune system gradually becomes less efficient. Some of the most influential aging research of the last 2 decades, including work by Elizabeth Blackburn and Alyssa Epple, has also linked chronic psychological stress with accelerated shortening of telomeres, the protective structures at the ends of our chromosomes that are often used as one marker of biological aging. Stress doesn't force your body to grow old. It simply keeps convincing it that survival matters more than long-term repair. And perhaps that's the biggest misunderstanding about aging. Your body isn't trying to get older. It isn't trying to give you wrinkles, or slower muscles, or lower energy. It's trying to keep you alive. The problem is, it believes the signals you repeat. Every meal, every night, every hour spent sitting, every breath, every stressful day, that quietly becomes a stressful lifestyle. Your biology is always listening, and over years, those tiny signals slowly become the face in the mirror, the joints that ache, the energy that fades, and the body you eventually call aging. The frightening part isn't that we're getting older, that's inevitable. The frightening part is how many of the signals shaping that future begin long before we ever notice them.